So, I mean, there are a ton of factors that impact our putting, right? There's so many things which are outside of our control, like the greens, you hit a rock and it bumps, and goes the wrong way. But there is one thing that's in our control, which you might not have thought about and you might not have practiced, even though you can, right? A lot of us work on our alignment, our speed control, all of these core skills, which we have to practice and we have to do. But there's one skill which research has shown has an impact on your putting ability, which I want to talk about today. We recently did a podcast with Dr. Gal Ziv. He did a bunch of review of research papers on something called quiet eye. It's looking at how we use our eyes when we're hitting putts and the impact of that. I want to talk all about it because there's a lot of good implications and some really simple training you can do to get started. Let's dive in. All right, so let's define quiet eye. Quiet eye talks about what our eyes are doing right before we hit a putt. So whether you're aware of it or not, something is going on. Maybe you're someone that is looking at the putter while you hit a putt. Maybe you're looking at the toe, you get distracted, whatever it might be. Here's the keys of what this research is trying to say. There's 2 to 3 seconds where our gaze should kind of be focused on a point on the ball. So for instance, I've got some of these Stars and Stripes balls. These are from this past summer. So let's say I was gonna take this star right here, and that was gonna be my focus. So when I set up, I'm gonna maybe look at the target. I'm gonna come back, my gaze is gonna go from the target, come back to the ball. And what the research was showing, about 2 to 3 seconds, it would stay there. So 2 to 3 seconds would land on that spot before I hit the putt and would not be jumping around. It wouldn't be jumping back to the target, it wouldn't be jumping to look at the putter or something on the green, but would just be kind of being focused there on the ball. And then the interesting part, and I think this is probably kind of key, is afterwards, the gaze would kind of stay where they're looking on the green in a similar position where they're looking before. So that's kind of what quiet eye is talking about and kind of the goal. And what they saw is that people that did that performed better than people that did not, that had a shorter gaze or kind of jumping around a bit more. And how they would track this is there's actual like a headset that you can wear over your eyes, and it'll show where you're looking and shows researchers. It's an expensive device, so not something for consumers necessarily, but shows where your attention is focused. So one of the interesting things to me is always asking why, right? This is obviously a tactic, a strategy that we can implement, but what are some of the reasons, like why could this work? And one of the theories, there's nothing specific, is that it could potentially be around kind of quieting the mind, that we're kind of taking all of this input and information, right? Because when we get up to a putt, our eyes are doing a lot. As we get down behind the ball, we're looking at maybe the grain, we're looking at the slope, we're trying to interpret the speed and the distance. There's a lot of things that we got to do in this preparation phase before we hit the ball. And so potentially by taking there's these 2 to 3 seconds where the eyes kind of quiet, it almost kind of quiets the brain as well. And it lets us process that information and react a bit more, as if in contrast to if our eyes keep darting all around, if we're picking a spot out, if we're looking at our putter, if we're making sure that we're going, trying to hit a line with our backstroke, or potentially could kind of quiet the mind. Which makes a lot of sense to me when you think about how we learn, how we process information, and then how we perform at our best. In fact, it relates really well with something Dr. Debbie Cruz, we did some stuff a few years ago, her research that she found out how the brain kind of levels out right before performance. And I thought that was fascinating, some of these potential correlations between this quiet eye research and some of the stuff that she's done as well. It's interesting with research, right? Because you feel like there's some research which is hard to implement. There's other research which is very practical, and I can go about training that and implementing that into my game. I think this is a great little performance hack that anyone can pick up. Let's talk about training it. Training quiet eye, I think, needs to be a practice and a ritual. For me, I found it very difficult to maintain this awareness of quiet eye over a long period of time. You just forget and just kind of let it go, I've found. So I think now, right now is the off season. I'm here in our office on our putting green, and it's something that we can work on. And maybe for you, it's just a simple cue of, rather than putting a dot on your ball near the number, whatever it is, but just putting a big dot kind of in the middle of a white space, and just kind of practicing with that potential, that cue, just as a reminder to you of this is something that I should be doing. Maybe you're in here, you're working on your alignment, your start line inside. I think adding on or spending some repetitions on quiet eye is super important for everyone. So, using just that simple dot as a reminder of this practice. I think this is a practice that you need to keep doing, and you need a reminder of it. So whatever that is for you, if it's a dot in a weird place on the golf ball or whatever works for you, I think that's a great thing. But start implementing this now. Over the off season, if you can, and bring this to the course and have a reminder of kind of quieting your mind, of having your eyes fixate on a point around there. Really interesting research. You can listen to the full thing on our podcast with Gal Ziv on quiet eye. I think we actually have a few podcasts on quiet eye, so we'll link those up below. Something to check out, something that research has validated, and I think it has some really simple training procedures that you can implement any time of year and get started with. Hey, this is fun just talking about a concept. I love diving into research. We have a lot more coming on our podcast. Make sure to subscribe to that or subscribe here on YouTube. Hope you enjoyed. See y'all next week.